All right, and we're back for another episode of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows, and if you can, please give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football and Domination Sports Nation, it is truly appreciated. I've got a lot of great shows that are lined up on the Pop Culture Cosmos over the next couple of weeks. The Pop Culture Cosmos is going to have a lot of great shows, a lot of great interviews, so check that out. Every Monday and Friday, new episodes drop. And this past Wednesday, I added another Game Source profile for Call of Duty Cold War, so you want to check that out as well. And then for the Lakers Fast Break, I not only have a retrospective part 1 on the Lakers season in audio form that's already up. You also want to check out the weekly Lakerholics roundtable that we have, the championship roundtable that we do each and every week. It's already up there. Plus, I have interviews coming with Rafael Barlow, my good friend from NBA Draft Junkies. I've also got NBA draft hopeful Mike Lenoir. He's coming up later in the week. And also Chris LeBron from the On the Ball podcast as well. So you want to go ahead and check that out at the Lakers Fast Break channel, wherever you get your podcasts. Well, I'll tell you what, very interesting week for the NFL. Week 9 was very interesting because all the plans that laid out, especially if you were Tampa Bay, unfortunately didn't get done. But there's still a lot to talk about when it comes to this week in the NFL. And some things I want to talk to you guys about today are a little bit different because there's this quarterback that's rising up the charts, and it's actually, when you talk about Mahomes, you talk about Russell Wilson, you talk about even Kyler Murray. There's also another quarterback there that we're also going to talk about, plus a whole lot more. And here today with me, as always, it's two great guys indeed. You got to follow them each and every week. In fact, they just dropped a new episode this week of the Domination Sports Nation. You got to catch it wherever you get your podcasts. It is Dominic and Chris Ardieri. And Dominic, great to have you on. And Chris, I'll tell you what, my friend, you guys are rocking on your show. I cannot give you enough praise for what you guys are doing on there.
Well, thank you, Gerald. And if you are a loyal listener to this show, we hope you listen to ours. You can follow us on Instagram at Domination Sports Nation, or you can also follow me on Twitter at Chris L Sports. And Dom, I think we went out on a limb and said you should listen to this podcast too on this week's episode, right?
Yeah, we did.
So there you go. I think that was the highlight of the show, in my opinion, Gerald.
Well, I appreciate all the love. I did get a chance to listen to that, so I appreciate you guys go ahead and sharing the love out there for ISFF. I truly appreciate it. Plus, if you have any questions out there, because you guys have been great out there as far as your questions each and every week on the show live, or you send them in to us, remember, that's isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com or at Inside Sports FF on Twitter, at Chris L Sports on Twitter, or Chris Ardieri on LinkedIn. So you want to go ahead, any one of those options to send those questions in, we'll go ahead and answer them. We'd love to go ahead and hear your thoughts on that. We always get a bunch of great comments in on each and every show, so we truly enjoy it. But first off, guys, it is none other than Josh Allen. When you look at the statistics over on ESPN or any other of the rankings that are out there when it concerns the scoring leaders, Patrick Mahomes at the top. Not a surprise. Russell Wilson, not a surprise. Kyler Murray, we'll talk about. Maybe that's not a surprise anymore because he's been playing really well. But ahead of Deshaun Wilson, ahead of Aaron Rodgers, ahead of even Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook is a player that I think was a surprise, especially because of the fact that Buffalo really did not have that great of an offense last year. It is Josh Allen. Dom, I want to ask you this first off. I think Chris and I just mentioned it in the beginning of the season. Could he keep this up? We weren't sure. I didn't think so, be honest with you, because I didn't think the offense would support it. But for a lot of fantasy football owners out there, I'm glad I was proven wrong.
Yeah, he had some awful weeks, and their offense had just looked awful for a few weeks. I think it started once they lost to the Chiefs, and then they had a tough game against the Jets where they barely won that game. And a lot of people didn't think much of Josh Allen because he hadn't been playing well, and I thought he was playing awful too. I thought he'd be much better this season, but he really hadn't for those few weeks. And then they go out and they beat the Seahawks. Not only they beat the Seahawks, but they beat them 44-34, where their offense was just on fire. So I think Josh Allen finally got some fire in his spirit.
Well, it's interesting because he has been having a great season and it could be in line for contention for the MVP award. Right now, 19 TDs, 5 interceptions, 5 rushing touchdowns. That's the thing that stands out to me because that was kind of surprising to a lot of people when you hear that number. 215 overall as far as the points are concerned at ESPN. He is ranked fourth and averaging 24 points a game. That's pretty darn good. And Chris, I will go back to I think the question I asked you earlier this year. Can he keep it up?
I think he can. The thing with him is he's so streaky, especially when it comes to his accuracy with throwing. He can just have stretches where he couldn't hit the side of a barn at times, and then others where he looks like really one of the bright young quarterbacks in the NFL. I think what the difference is what he does with his feet. Much like Kyler Murray, he is definitely a threat running the ball. As a fantasy owner, he can get you those running touchdowns, and getting 6 points in the column as opposed to 4 for a passing touchdown definitely helps. And I think that's where he's the most dangerous. And as the Bills go through the AFC East, or at least as it should be called this year, I think that'll continue to help them. And definitely playing against a porous Seahawks defense was the elixir he needed this past Sunday.
That's the best part about it is, if them going against Seattle. I mean, Seattle's one of the top teams in the NFL, but has one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I can't, it's almost hard to fathom and equate that, but you got to say it because Russell Wilson, I don't know, Dom, you got to give this guy a break because it seems if one year he's like running for his life because he's like got defensive ends down his throat. Now you have a chance to you have a team and an offense that's really geared for high gear, but you got a defense that's bad. So it doesn't really seem to go ahead and work out with him as far as a quality team each and every year. Even though he's got a great record now, it seems like he always has to go ahead and put out that extra effort each and every season.
Yeah, he does, and their offense has been really good this year. And I have to say, Russell Wilson, though he's an MVP candidate, and there's been a lot of talk about him, he didn't have his best game against the Bills. He
No.
had some interesting turnovers, one which they went for it on fourth down, fourth and goal actually, and he just threw a lousy interception in the end zone. And he threw some other questionable throws as well, but hey, they put up 34 points in a loss, so I guess there's nothing to complain about, but their defense has been awful. They weren't able to stop Kyler Murray. They weren't able to stop even the 49ers. They actually had some late touchdowns on them with Nick Mullins as a quarterback. And I just think their defense is the piece that will kind of keep them out of the Super Bowl if they're going to try to make a run.
And that's going to be a shame because, again, I think Russell Wilson is a tremendous quarterback. I really like to watch him play because he's got a great arm, just very exciting to watch. But we had this conversation, Chris, where we had stated that it was now kind of a toss-up between Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes for MVP. But after last week's performance, maybe not through any real fault of his own, it seems like Patrick Mahomes has broken out from the pack. And maybe now Kyler Murray has gone in his place.
Could be. I do think with Murray, the Cardinals had a bad loss to the Dolphins last week, so they need to get back on the winning track this week against Buffalo for him to make his case. I think the thing that stands out for me with Mahomes is 1 interception this season. Whereas with Wilson, there are times, and I think an announcer made the analogy, it was a Daniel Jones-like interception where he forced the ball against the Bills. I wouldn't go that far as a Giants fan, but it wasn't a good decision. But at the same time, you can't really fault Wilson when his defense is giving up a touchdown. It seemed like every possession down the field, and he's really forced to try and make things happen. And they don't have the greatest running game. So I think he's a fantastic quarterback, but if things play out like they have been, they've got a tough game against the Rams this week. There may be instances where he tries to do a little too much to try and win the game on his own shoulders, and that could hurt him and the Seahawks long term.
How bad is it that Daniel Jones has already earned a rep that he's now got his own type of interception?
It's not good, to say the least.
No, it's not. And you got to feel for the kid, because I know that he's not on a great team, but you know what? I would those kind of things, those kind of ways that you say it, and those kind of phrases already that you talk about, that's going to hurt the kid developmentally. And I don't know if Daniel Jones will ever get the opportunity to fully succeed at his position if there's already being this type of setback and or this type of knowledge or this type of rhetoric spoken about Daniel Jones already. So it's kind of disappointing to see that people already have that reputation stuck on him. But you know what? It's the life in the NFL. I mean, we're already seeing it right now with 3-4 quarterbacks being talked about already near the top of the first round for next year's draft. So you know what? You either play well right away or you don't play at all. So seemingly it's going to be that way for right now. But I want to go ahead and throw this out there to anyone listening. If you want to go ahead and share your thoughts on whether or not Josh Allen is a true number one quarterback in fantasy. In fact, could he be considered for the MVP? We want to hear your thoughts. isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com or Inside Sports FF on Twitter. Just please share us your thoughts on Josh Allen. How good is he? We want to know right now. We want to know whenever you can at Inside Sports Fantasy Football. But there's so much more to talk about. Kyler Murray, who I just mentioned briefly, he has been zooming up the charts. He is now number 2, Dom. So I ask you this. Can Kyler Murray be consistent on that? Because he is not, even though I have him, and I'm so thankful I have him as my starting quarterback, even above Deshaun Watson, I still am so thankful that I have him on my team, because he has been a player that, I will tell you what, he's been a player that really has gone out of his way to go ahead and develop that position even more as far as from the dual threat standpoint. I really think he's done a great job and exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, he has, and I think that's part of them getting DeAndre Hopkins in that awful trade with Houston. I mean, they didn't have to give up a lot to get him, so it was basically a steal. And even though he didn't really throw to him that much, as I was surprised last week, the Dolphins kind of contained DeAndre Hopkins, or it was just the fact that Murray was scrambling for his life. And I think they gave the Dolphins defense credit. They contained the Rams offense, which has been really good this year, and then they contained the Cardinals as well. So this Dolphins defense is looking good, and Kyler Murray has looked really good as well.
Yes, he has, and I'm very thankful for it, and so is my fantasy team. I'm on a hot streak right now in my ESPN league thanks to him. So, yeah, he's getting consistently above even 30 points in fantasy football, so that's really, really good. I want to go ahead and mention real quick, the Canadian Jew has told us he has a question, and Josh Allen should be considered in the top 3. So if you want, go ahead, send us that question. You can go ahead and let us know. We'll be glad to answer it for you. But Chris, Kyler Murray is just been so incredible out there. I mean, such a dynamic individual. And again, someone who I'm very happy. I was just thankful to have him as a backup in case Deshaun Watson got injured. But by week 3, I've been starting him, and I've never doubted it ever since.
He's a bona fide elite fantasy quarterback. We had him last year in that same capacity, started as a backup, and we're playing him every single week down the stretch. And I think if you're an owner of him, unless you've got a Mahomes like we do on our team, he's just one of those guys you plug and play, and you basically keep a backup on your team in case, God forbid, he gets hurt or comes down with COVID and is out for a few weeks. Otherwise, you do not need a top-notch backup quarterback. He's going to play every week for you. He's going to get you points. And like we said with Allen, he's going to get you that bonus +2 with the way he can run the ball into the end zone. Exactly.
I mean, it's just a tremendous thing to see when you have someone that exceeds your expectations, because you guys out there and you gals who play fantasy football, we always have those ones where, oh, yeah, we draft him. Oh, he's going to do great. and then it falls short due to injury or just performance issues. It's so nice when you see someone exceed those expectations. And actually, I want to talk to you right now about that. And once again, I'm on with Dominic and Chris Sardieri from the Domination Sports Nation podcast. Please go ahead and give them a shout out and give them some love wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, doesn't matter. It's all right there for you at the Domination Sports Nation, where they cover the world of sports in its entirety. So look out for that. Again, if you have any questions for us, just pop it up right now live. We're happy to go ahead and answer during the show. Or if you got a chance as well after, if you're not watching this live or you're listening to us, go ahead and you have a question on your fantasy football, just go ahead and shoot it out to us, isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com. But Dom, I want to ask you this. We go back to Seattle, and there's a good reason why. And part of the reason why Seattle and primarily Russell Wilson up until last weekend has had a really, really outstanding year. And in fact, was neck and neck with Patrick Mahomes for MVP running until then, was the fact that he's had just a couple of outstanding receivers. So I want to hear your thoughts on the wide receiver set for Seattle. Have they exceeded your expectations? Is this what you were expecting, or is this something much more? Because DK Metcalf and also as well Tyler Lockett, they're right there as far as wide receivers. And in fact, you look at them right now as far as in fantasy points, they were actually up higher last week, but right now they're number 3 and number 5. So 2 Seattle receivers in the top 5. That is really, really good.
Yeah, it is. And I think Metcalf has really exceeded my expectations. I know coming out of Ole Miss, he's definitely a freak of nature. I mean, he ran a 4.33 in his combine 40-yard dash, so doesn't that tell you something? And he's a great route runner, and Wilson likes to get the ball to him, but I feel like it's kind of an on and off type thing with these Seattle receivers. Tyler Lockett hasn't really gotten many points this past couple weeks after having a bomb week in Arizona where he had 3 touchdowns, I believe, and Metcalf has been scoring a touchdown, it almost seems, every game. So they're really good, these Seattle receivers, but I think DK Metcalf is the more consistent one.
Well, I agree with you on that, but Tyler Lockett is, I know, and has been a favorite target of Russell Wilson, and he is, like you said, more susceptible to the huge game. Because I remember not too long ago, he was actually number 1 as far as receivers for fantasy football. So that's something to consider there, that he might be primed to have a big outing coming up. Chris, do you concur that this seems to me like last year that we saw out of the Tampa Bay receivers? Because the Tampa Bay receivers, we were amazed. In fact, we even did an episode on them about how well that they were producing within their own offense. This seems to be just even a little bit notch higher.
I agree. And I think, too, especially with the way that you can't just think, oh, well, Lockett's getting the ball now, Metcalf's going to get shut out. Because there were times last year where I felt as though Godwin may be the hot guy one week and then Evans would come around. I mean, every week, both Lockett and Metcalf are a threat to put up substantial fantasy points. So I'd have to say they're better right now. And let's face it, Wilson's a far superior quarterback, both in fantasy and in real life, than Jameis Winston was. And even though he's forced some bad turnovers this year, you're not going to see him throw 30-plus interceptions.
Absolutely. So it's going to be something very interesting to see going forward. Can Seattle have not only just 1, but 2 receivers in the top 5 in fantasy football? That's going to be very interesting to see if they can keep that pace up, because if they can over the course of the next 6-8 weeks, it's going to be very interesting to see how that lays out. Guys, there's so much more to talk about on today's program. And in fact, I want to ask you this. When it comes to what's going on with trades, because we're inching closer and closer to the trade deadline. And like me, you've thrown a lot of trades out there. And again, it's my system of having the 3-4 quarterbacks on my team, all top notch, all doing well. And all of a sudden you want to go ahead and try and get some depth everywhere else, and nobody wants to bite at it. I want to ask you this, though. Is it time for us individuals like myself that have been throwing trades out there and not getting any action? Is it time to maybe lower your expectations and get anything you can just to build some depth going forward? So I want to ask you, Dom, on that. I mean, I know everybody out there in the early weeks, they throw out high values. They throw out everything out there in trades that are just really outlandish at times and whatnot, and people always scoff at it. But as the weeks go on, whether you're a buyer or a seller, it seems to get a little bit more attractive and a little more attractive. Is this the time right now to go ahead and start making those trades, regardless of really something outrageous? You should just go ahead and say, you know what, if it's going to help my team at least a little, I should go ahead and look at it.
Yeah, if you're really desperate as a team, like if you're in 9th or 10th place, depending on how many teams you have in your league, I think if you have a really good player like a Keenan Allen or a Devontae Adams, and you're getting maybe a running back and two great receivers for that player, I think you got to do it, because now you're looking, if you're going to try to make a run to get into the playoffs, or you're already in a position to make the playoffs, you're going to need more depth than just one player carrying your team.
Well, it's going to be something to see, because as it gets closer to the trade deadline, you're going to see more and more people get desperate. I might get desperate. Although right now I've picked up a lot of guys off the waiver wire in my ESPN league, not my sleeper league, because my sleeper league, even though I'm not exactly have the most robust of lineups, I've still managed to go ahead and I guess get 8-1. So I'm doing very well there. My ESPN league, I'm really starting to get on a roll, but I'm still worried about my depth going forward. And Chris, I know you guys have a team that is competitive that's out there. Are you looking at just making trades to go ahead and say, you know what, I want to fill out some good slots on my roster, so I'm not going to be maybe as picky as I once was if the trade had come down, say, let's say in week 2 or week 3?
Definitely. And we're in the playoff hunt in our one league, and it turns out in our other league where we were in the cellar, we're gradually inching our way out. We're up to 7th place. We've had a 3-game winning streak here. We're putting up more points. And just this week, I call him Trader Dom now. This guy's wheeling and dealing like crazy. When the Yahoo deadline comes up on the 14th here, I don't know what he's going to do with himself, because this guy knows how to make deals. But he came to me with one the other day. Apparently someone in our league really wanted Keenan Allen. And as we've been hammering home the past few weeks, Dom says it, I taught him well: buy low, sell high. And Keenan Allen had a fantastic game for the Chargers against the Raiders. But let's face it, Herbert likes to spread the ball around, and I know Allen will benefit at times, but sometimes he doesn't. So Dom got in return, and he was holding out for Will Fuller, but he didn't get it. But I'll run this by you, Gerald, because it basically gave us depth at wide receiver, valued handcuffed one of our other running backs, and a starting tight end. We got in return Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette. We've already got Ronald Jones on the team, so he's a good handcuff for insurance. And TJ Hawkinson, who we tried to sneak through waivers during a bye week, and someone was shrewd and snapped him up. We're happy to have him back on our team. Gerald, that's the perfect example of, do we want to trade Keenan Allen? Not really, but the sum of what we got back was far greater than what we gave to the other team.
I agree with you on that. And you're right. Keenan Allen, with that great performance, he's moved up into 7th right now on the list of wide receivers. So maybe it is a time to sell high on him, because you don't know what's going to happen with Justin Herbert doing such a great job out there for the Chargers. But man, they have such a bad luck. I thought that Phillip Rivers' luck would go to Indianapolis. Turns out it's the team. It's not Phillip Rivers.
A franchise.
There you go.
Yeah. Got to feel bad for them in LA. I mean, if they have any luck, it's just bad. But you know what? Herbert has been just a godsend for them as far as the way he's played. And I feel bad for Tyrod Taylor about how it happened. Still, I mean, he's got to be dejected each and every week as he sees Herbert just playing so well each and every week, even though the team is still losing. But yeah, selling as far as that option, as far as Keenan Allen, selling him on a high note, as far as being able as a player to go ahead after a great performance, looking into trades, that is something you definitely want to deal with, especially if it gets you a lot of depth in return. So yeah, I would probably look at trades now for my teams a little bit more closely than I did. I was just basically decline earlier in the season. I'm not so fast anymore with that trigger button. I'm looking at those trades carefully and saying, can this help my team in one or two specific areas?
Absolutely. And one thing I'll throw out there, because not a lot of people realize this, maybe you throw out something on your message board or in your message you attach to a trade offer. Hey, listen, trade deadline Saturday. Let's make a deal. And people will say, oh, geez, I'm in the middle of the pack here. I might be able to make a run, get a little desperate. Not so much in the NFL, but you see it in baseball where the playoff contenders, I'll go trade for a guy who's going to be a free agent, but he's a pitcher and we need pitching if we're going to play in October. Do that sort of psychological move on them.
Well, see, the thing is, Sleeper League, I will give them credit. They do a lot of things weird. So I'm not exactly in love with the thing. But one of the things they do is you get a notification every time someone puts someone on the trading block. ESPN doesn't have that. They used to have something like that, and then they've taken now. You can go ahead and maybe email the other owners, but it could go right to spam, so you don't know if they saw it or anything like that. So I earlier this season, with my 4 quarterbacks, I put them all out there, and I didn't get a single bite back. Now I'm going to try it again and see what happens, but it's very interesting to see what kind of depth I can get if that's the case. I'd love to take on offers, but no one's been offering me on ESPN. But in sleepers, I get, amazingly, even though I don't have that kind of depth, especially after the Dallas quarterback got injured. You've got actually 2 Dallas quarterbacks I have got injured. I don't have the kind of depth there, but that's the league I'm getting all the offers. So it's kind of weird how ESPN lays it out. I think that's their one weak flaw is just basically go ahead and ask and propose for trades to other teams outside of a 1-to-1. You can't put anybody you can't get everybody a notice at the same time. It's really a lot more difficult to do so and have everybody notice. But I will tell you what, it is coming around very soon. In fact, I think for most leagues, it'll come out just before, it'll come out just before we do our next show. So with the trading deadline on the horizon, people have to now start thinking seriously about the kind of things that they want to go ahead and shore up. So please, if you're out there, go ahead and make those trade offers now, if you're listening to us. So you can go ahead and at least get some players before the trade deadline comes up. So, all right, there, you can go ahead right now if you have any questions or if you have any trade offers, please let us know. isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com or at Inside Sports FF on Twitter, Chris Sardieri at LinkedIn or at Crystal Sports on Twitter. Please, if you've got any trade offers out there that you want to send or receive, let us know. We'll give you the yay or nay that as far as maybe helping you out there to make a decision on those trades out there, because the trade deadline is coming up fast. And we want to hear your thoughts on that. isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com. Well, guys, it's been a great episode. I cannot thank you enough for being a part of it. Before we head on out, though, 2 last things. Woof, woof, woof. It's time for the doghouse, Chris. So let's go on down to the doghouse with Chris Sardieri.
Well, the doghouse had another successful week last week, whereas my pick'em contest with Gerald has gone downhill. So we're having a little bit of an inverse reaction here, picks wise, for yours truly. Going to go out on a limb, and one of the games I picked in our contest last week, I picked against the Giants thinking the Washington football team would rebound, but forgot that the only team Daniel Jones seems to like to perform against is Washington. He is now 4-0 against them. And this week, the Giants, little momentum coming off a win. They probably should have won against the Buccaneers the previous Monday night. The Philadelphia Eagles come to town to the Meadowlands. They're off a bye week, and they had a nice comeback victory against the Giants a few weeks back. But I got to tell you, as a Giants fan who's pessimistic at best and loves to rip on Dave Gettleman every week, it's one of my favorite pastimes. I got to say, Joe Judge, for being a young guy, a special teams coach, has really impressed me because there's not a heck of a lot of talent on this team. And this defense has really hung in there and won a number of games for them and kept them in the game. I think the Giants could have easily beaten the Eagles. That's the infamous game where Daniel Jones tripped when he could have had a clear touchdown, kind of the epitome of his career to this point. But the Giants are getting 3.5 at home. You know me, I love the hook. I think this could be a close game. If the Giants don't win and it comes down to a field goal, you've got that extra half-point cushion, as I've been beating into all our loyal listeners' heads over the years. So what the heck, I'll go out on a limb. not trying to play favorites here, but whenever I see that point spread and a home dog getting the extra half point, and I saw it happen to be the Giants this week, I'll take it. I mean, they're competitive at times. As long as Jones can minimize the turnovers, I think they'll be in this game. And frankly, I think Carson Wentz is also a turnover machine. So the Giants D may be able to force a few against him this coming Sunday. So Giants this week's doghouse pick.
I got to tell you, my friend, I'm hoping it doesn't necessarily come to fruition the way you see it, because I picked up on streaming for my ESPN league the Philadelphia defense. So I'm sorry about
you're
that.
You're going to get turnovers. I will guarantee you, I'll go out on a limb, you'll get turnovers. I just don't know if they'll pitch a shutout this week.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. Maybe 0-0. I'll take 0-0, 3-3, something like that.
How about a 3-0 Eagles win? That'll be the best of both worlds.
There you go. Or even if it's a Giants win, like 3-0. I'll take that, because that's a lot of defense there for you. So yeah, I'll take that. It sounds good.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it as well. Dom, I want to ask you this before we go ahead and do the Pick'em Challenge and give the update on that. When it comes to what you're seeing out there in the league so far, I want to go ahead and hear your thoughts on, is there any trends that you're noticing outside of fantasy football? I mean, I know you guys cover the world of the NFL on your show, Domination Sports Nation, but what are some of the things that you're tracking as we get closer and closer? Maybe even the playoff race, you could say, has already begun.
Yeah, it has, and a team to look out for, despite them only being on a 2-game win streak. But the team beat the Packers. The Vikings beat the Packers. They also beat the Lions, and they get the Bears on Monday Night Football. I wouldn't be surprised if they run the table and sneak in as the extra wild card. As you saw, the new NFL added another wild card team. So basically, the Vikings have a shot now if the Rams or the Cardinals. And we talked about this on our podcast yesterday about if an NFC West team kind of falls out of it, whether it's the Rams or the Cardinals, then the Vikings have a shot to sneak in.
I hope that that's the case, because as the only other healthy quarterback outside of Aaron Rodgers on my sleeper team, that would mean Kirk Cousins would have to start playing consistent football, which is great, because in that league, the one benefit is that one of your flex players can be a quarterback. So he's helped me to a couple wins already. So on those weeks he's hot, of course. So it's great to see that that's the case. I'm hoping it will be the case, and the Vikings can come back. That will mean I will probably be a very happy camper as far as Kirk Cousins is concerned. And Chris, that has been something. He was my 4-string quarterback going in, and now due to injury, I now have to play him every week. I wasn't so sure about it, but you know what? He hasn't done a bad job at all.
He hasn't, and if they at any point stop giving Dalvin Cook the ball, or other teams kind of figure out maybe we should stack the line against this guy that can only help Cousins. I'm not saying you're going to get elite Murray or Mahomes type points week to week, but you could do a heck of a lot worse than him, especially the fact he's got Thielen and Jefferson to throw to.
Yeah, I mean, he gets me about 18 to 20, 21 a week on most weeks. I'll take it. I'll take it every time. And I think that's something, people need to consider is, okay, you're always looking for the 25 to 30 points each and every week from your quarterbacks. If you have someone coming off the bench for you that can get you 18 to 20, either on an off week as you're feeling, or like me in the sleeper league, which I can use as a flex player, Dom, that's not half bad.
Yeah, it isn't. And he likes to throw those little screen passes to Dalvin Cook, which gets a lot of yardages, and he gets you some decent points, even though he can be inaccurate at times. He has 2 great receivers, in Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, and once Thielen leaves the Vikings, or whenever that is, I think Justin Jefferson can be the starter, and you can tell he likes to throw to him.
I like it as well, so keep on doing it. Hopefully there will be a run in the making for the Minnesota Vikings. That will mean good things for me, and hopefully everybody out there, if you have Kirk Cousins or any one of the members of the Minnesota offense. Well, guys, it's been great talking to you both on this week's show, but before we head on out, Chris, you and I matching up. Didn't have a good week either, you and I. 1-2 overall this past weekend. Unfortunately, my pick'em didn't work out. I really thought the Chargers were going to beat the Raiders. Didn't kind of work out there. I know you with the Tampa Bay pick, that was over early. That was
Oof.
really decided early.
31-0 at halftime.
Yeah, 31-0. Now, I mean, I heard that and I'm like, oh, man, that's a spanking, all right. But Chris, you're still leading, my friend. 14-13 is your overall score this season. Mine is 12-14-1, so I'm a game and a half behind you. Hopefully everybody gets a chance to check out Inside Sports Fantasy Football on Facebook on Saturday night-ish, Sunday morning-ish. We post our thoughts on 3 games and the point spreads on them. And you can go ahead and share your thoughts too on it anytime you want. Inside Sports Fantasy Football on Facebook. And you can always send us a message there as well if you got somebody as far as for a trade or for a decision or on a waiver wire. I want to ask you this, guys, before we head on out. This is a good question, and I ask this almost every week. Dom, let me ask you this. Is there anybody left that's good on the waiver wire?
I don't know. I think Curtis Samuel's probably gotten picked up in every league with the week that he had. I liked him. Luckily, I jumped on the bandwagon a week earlier, so no one could get him in one of our leagues. But, I mean, if you see Duke Johnson out there, I don't think David Johnson's going to play. He didn't clear concussion protocol, so he's a starter if he's on the waiver wire. And now, I don't know if Austin Eckler is going to return, but Keelan Ballage got a lot of carries with Justin Jackson being injured, and it still says that he was limited in practice. So if you want to go try to pick up Keelan Ballage, I don't know if he's going to be the starter between him and Kelly, but go try to pick him up.
And J.D. McKissick, if he's still out there. We talked about him last week. You guys corrected his last name for me. I picked him up, and I got 17 points from him last week. So someone to watch out for. He doesn't run too many times, but Chris, he's been catching a lot of balls from the backfield.
He has. This guy, no matter what team he plays on, I feel like the middle of the year, Mr. McKissick pops up and gets you decent fantasy points. So I think he's worth it. Going back to Ballage with the Chargers, Dom and I were watching that game last Sunday, and we were racking our brains, being the fantasy nerd that I am. I know I had him on one of my teams, and I couldn't remember. I think he was with the Cardinals, but I could be wrong. But it was nice to hear his name again. I like him. Look, he may not be out there still, but there may be some skeptical leagues. Pick up Tua. I think he really had a good game against the Cardinals, and you got to have that quarterback depth. And who knows, he could be this year's Kyler Murray, where he really has a nice second half of the year. It was cool to see those guys reunited. They played each other in the semifinals back in the 2018 college playoffs, and Tua can do it with his feet too. There's always that added value.
So Tua is now someone that these guys recommend picking up. So there you go. Funny how it's changed from week to week, from a couple weeks ago to what it is now. So that's a good sign for Tua fans going forward. J.D. McKissick, I mean, if you got him, he should be out there in some leagues as far as an option on the waiver wire. You might want to pick him up because he's getting a lot of catches out of the backfield. And actually, if he does get a chance to run, it seems he's getting a lot of good yards per carry. That, it maybe throws off the defense when he does run. So look out for that. But, there are still maybe some fines out there. I picked up Joe Burrow last week because he was on a bye. So I'm very happy that I got him. That's now my 4th quarterback. So now I can see I can go ahead and see if I can trade him or someone else in my team. So because I want to need to get some depth. Hopefully you will go ahead and make some moves too. If you have any moves you want to go ahead and discuss with us, you can do so at any time. Again, isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com or Inside Sports FF on Twitter, at Chris L Sports on Twitter, Inside Sports Fantasy Football on Facebook, or Chris Ardieri on LinkedIn. And what are you guys' best way to go ahead in case they want to ask you a question as a member of the Domination Sports Nation? What's the best way to get a hold of your show?
2 ways, Instagram at Domination Sports Nation, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at Chris L Sports. Gerald, we've had some conversations picking your brain on things. We're in the process of adding a Facebook and YouTube presence. So once we get that up and running and up to our liking, we will definitely send that information out on a future show.
Looking forward to it indeed. Once again, that's the Domination Sports Nation. Check out their latest episode today, wherever you get your podcasts. Well, guys, it's been great talking to you both. Looking forward to Week 10 in the NFL. Hopefully everyone out there has a successful week. Please be safe, stay healthy, and stay true to your fantasy football teams this weekend right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football.